Hey dear fellows, hope so you must be good. This is Junior Scientist and we have just started a series of various lectures for biology, chemistry that will be covering various boards related to IGCSE A levels, about Cambridge, about Excel, and so we soon we will add a federal board and remaining boards also. So basically in today's lecture we have just started biology and biology. It's probably a third lecture. So it's about vertebrates. Now you should be clear with the terminology, like what the vertebrates say. Vertebrates are the animals which have a vertebral column among them. Uh, the vertebral column is sometimes called as spinal cord, and just the spine and consists of cylindrical bones and this. Okay. Now basically the vertebral column is what which connects your head to your lower body parts. That is what we can call it as vertebral column, and that vertebral column contain about 32 to 33 vertebrae into it. That vertebrae is going to protect a thread like material which is called as spinal column, spinal cord, and that spinal cord or spinal column is basically making communications from your head to your brain, from your head to your lower body, and that is guiding different body parts to stay connected with each other. So basically that is what you can make a clue what the vertebral column is. Also, if you touch up your back, you will feel a vertebral column. I mean, like a harder bone-like stuff would be there. It is actually your vertebral column that makes you vertebrate, and it is responsible for like communication between your lower body parts and your upper body parts. Now, up to your book. Each vertebra consists of an arch of the bone on its dorsal surface, upper side. So basically, each vertebra contains two sides of it, the one which we can feel and the other side which we can't feel. So the best way is to judge them using touch of it. The side which you can feel would be the like dorsal surface area or the upper surface area. Now, the front end of the spinal cord is expanded from a brain, and which is enclosed and protected by a skull. So simply, vertebral column is what which was doing protection. So first function we just learned is like it is doing protection of your spinal cord. What was the spinal cord? Spinal cord was doing a connection between your upper body parts and lower body parts. The third function now we are learning is like it is establishing a connection from. Like after connection, it is actually it is leading to the upper side of your body, which is usually your head, your skull. So basically your skull, it is connecting to yourself to your skull, and that skull is protecting your brain. Remember that brain is firstly protected by a harder material skull. Also, within the skull there is a thing which is called as blood brain barrier, which is specifically covering your brain to not to get facing any damage or the things. Also, the function of blood-brain barrier is to promote the transmission of different nutrients or different minerals inside and outside of your brain. Okay. Also, when you move it downward, there would be a thing. I mean, skull divides into the two pairs. Basically, this called as like pair of jaws are there. Obviously, upper jaw and lower jaw, and they are divided into teeth. So basically, remember that the strongest organ of your body or the strongest bone of your body is your teeth. The next point is that okay, so there is another function to categorize like vertebrates or non. I mean, like yeah, vertebrates basically. That is the body temperature. So there is a two terminologies like cold-blooded organisms or uh, warm-blooded organisms. So when it comes to cold-blooded organisms, basically it is a misconception like their body got freeze or they can't maintain their body temperature. No, generally they can actually maintain their body temperature when they move from colder or shadowed region to the hotter region, or maybe in the they come closer to the area which are receiving direct heat from the sun. They can also like maintain their body temperature, but obviously they can maintain or regulate their body temperature. So that is how you can call it as a cold-blooded organism. Now, the point is that such cold-blooded organisms are those animals which have a variable body temperature to some extent, and it depends upon the temperature of their surroundings. So the worst thing of the life is basically dependency. So they are dependent upon the surrounding temperature, surrounding climate. Whenever it is hotter, they will perform their regular activity. Even it is well noticed in summer, you can clearly see lizards on the walls, but when it got winter, they are hardly seen. What is the reason? The reason being is that in winter they got frozen up. Their body got unable to maintain the regular activity. So they face something which is called as hibernation. It is a condition when they hide themselves from the certain environment in order to for the sake of their safety. Next is for the reptiles. Reptiles are those organisms which may control their body temperature by moving into sun or retreating into the shade, but there is no internal regulatory mechanism. So they can maintain it, but obviously they need some external support for that case. Next case is that when it comes to the warm-blooded organisms or warm-blooded animals, most of the for the most of the part their body temperature is higher than that of their surroundings. First thing is that cold-blooded organisms were dependent upon the external environment. When it comes to the warm-blooded organisms, they are not dependent on the external environment. They can regulate your body temperature. Or simply, when it comes to the cold-blooded, lizards are the cold-blooded organisms, but human beings are the warm-blooded organisms. Obviously, we don't have need to get hibernate when it's extremely cold or hotter. We can survive on the land. Next is the main difference is like that these temperatures are constant more or less. So basically warm-blooded are not dependent on external climate or temperature, but the cold-blooded are dependent. They might got frozen up, they might have to do hibernation to get hidden into certain areas. Okay, that's it till this point. The next one is that it is better to use the term kilothermic. Now, this is when somebody is facing variability in the temperature. That is kilothermic organisms. But when it comes to the homothermic or homeothermic organisms, they are having the constant temperature. So when it comes to the warm-blooded organisms, they are the homeothermics. When it comes to the like cold-blooded organisms, they are the piothermic organisms. Another term is it is to simplify cold and warm-blooded. So that's it for the cold and warm-blooded organisms. Next point is that the advantage of piothermicity is that the organism's activity is not dependent on the surrounding. They don't have need to hide themselves. A lizard may become sluggish if the temperature falls. Obviously, it can't maintain its own temperature. So you can imagine when something is in frozen state, it is not able to defend itself. A hot-blooded or warm-blooded organism could come and kill that lizard quite easily. So that is the disadvantage of the of being a predator or being a cold-blooded organism. Next is a feature when it comes to the fish. Fishes are basically kilothermic, that the cold-blooded vertebrates. Many of them have a smooth, streamlined shape which offer minimal resistance, which allow them to move smoothly through up the water. Because obviously their fins are like they are, you could say that sensitive, or obviously water slides are so high, water move faster, so they can slightly move ahead, and they got enough energy to put them forward or maybe the backward. Next point is that their bodies are covered with the overlying scales. We can easily see the scales, they are visible to us. Now, those scales are basically for the sake of their bodily protection. Also, they have a fins which play important parts in their movement. As soon as they're going to beat a water, they can move ahead. Next is the point fish breathe by the mean of the filamentous gill, which are protected by a bony plate which is called as a perculum. Now, the way they can breathe is further protected by the operculum. Obviously, just like humans, we have breath for the protection of our vital organs, but for the case of such smaller creatures, they have protective organs just like operculum or the thing, so they can protect themselves by the operculum. Fish reproduce sexually, but that is basically fertilization takes place externally. Now, a female lay eggs, and further, a male organism or male fish could came and he has removed through of sperms onto them. So, active sperms will be able to fuse with the active egg. So then they will give birth to different offspring. So that's it. Now you can see up to this anatomy. Basically, when it comes to this fish, you can see its scales, which are basically for the sake of its protection. Now it comes to its like operculum. It is covering gill for the sake of their safety, so that they won't get damaged up. Next is the different fins are there. They are going to protect its body parts. Like aiding it to move ahead or backward. Tailfish is there. Why is it needed? So that if water is coming like this way, it can move ahead. So it could aid fish to move. Next one is like it's an anal fit. It is basically aiding fish to get rid of the extra material or the excreted material which you don't want. The next one is about amphibians. So basically, amphibians are the Piochilothermic again. They are the cold blooded, obviously. They face variability in their temperature. They are those vertebrates which have four limbs and they don't need any scales. The class includes frogs, toads, and nuts. So basically, the name amphibian means double life, and obviously, there is reason behind this naming. They survive half part of their life in water and remaining half life of them in the land. Now, what's happening there is that basically the name amphibian means double life, and they refer to the fact that that the organism spend part of its life in water and part of its land, obviously. In fact, most frogs, toads, and newts spend much of their time on the land and the moist creature. Why? Because they need water for the laying up of their eggs, for the sake of fusing up, or maybe some sort of sometimes they need it for the sake of reproduction. So they can't survive without water actually. Now they return to the land, or they return to the ponds when they have to fuse, or fuse their eggs. They have to release their eggs so that the eggs got mature later on in that pot and they can also leave it. Now that is the reason why they need water. So you can clearly see, you might have seen the frog. So basically there are its nostrils. You know that nostrils activity is to aid like organism to breathe while to intake air. Next point is like it contains some moist skin over it. So it have a moist skin. It makes it slippery appearance. Maybe it aids it to move away from the predators. Next is its hind limbs, which is going to aid it to jump or to make huge jumps in water. It can aid it to move faster when it comes to swimming in water. Next is webbed foot. What do you mean by this term? It is basically this is the attachment of the some skin is present between different fingers. It's also for the sake of moving faster or maybe to swim well. Okay. Now, the next term is basically the toad skin is drier than that of the frog, and it has gland which can exclude some unwanted or some bad smell, some unpleasant smell, so that it can repel the predators. Obviously, everything needs some sort of weapons for its survival. For this case, they can release a bad smell to divert attention of their predators. Now the next creator is newts. They differ from frogs and the toads having a tail. So basically they differ from them because they possess a tail. All three groups are carnivores. They can eat organisms, the small organisms. The next point is that amphibia have four limbs. In frogs and toads, the hind feet have a web of skin between the toes, which aids them to move faster, to swim faster because they enhance the surface area. So when they have more surface area on the feet, they can resist water with a greater force. Next is newts. They swim by wriggling by having a fish-like movement of their body. They can just they apply small force to resist water or to repel water to move faster. So they make less use of their limb for swimming. Next is amphibia. Amphibia have moist skins with a good supply of capillaries, which can exchange oxygen and carbon dioxide with the air or water. So that is how they can deal with it. They obviously need moist skin for one way is like it is protecting them against the predators, also aiding them to exchange the different gases. They also have lungs which can be inflated. So basically what does this inflated lungs mean? It is like they are going to when their body resists them to promote more and more supply of oxygen to their alveoli. So that is basically the inflated lungs. Next is when it comes to frogs and toads, they migrate to ponds where male and females pair up. Mostly they move ahead to water to lay eggs, or maybe for the sake of fusion. The male climbs on the female's back, so he's going to grab them so that they could mate up. When female lay eggs, the male spontaneously releases the sperm, and they can then fuse in them to give rise to another offspring. Okay, so that is how till this point. So that's it till this point. We will move ahead to the reptiles, birds in the next lecture. So that's it. Now, in today's lecture, as per summary, we have learned about the cold-blooded and the warm-blooded organisms. The first difference is like we learned is like cold-blooded have variable body temperature. They can maintain it along with the external temperature of the surrounding. Also, the cold-blooded organisms uh, can their body temperature modifies, they are external temperature dependent. Okay, so they suffer hibernation, while in case of warm-blooded organisms, they don't have to suffer from hibernation. They don't need any aid of the external temperature. They maintain their own body temperature. They don't have to obviously hibernate. Next is we learned about okay, so next is we learned about we learned about fishes. So fish and amphibia both are a poikilothermic. They're the cold-blooded. They're dependent upon their external temperature. So we just learned some sort of frogs are having moist body appearance, which aids them to divert attention of their predators. So that's it till this point. In upcoming lectures, we will start from the reptiles, birds, and probably the mammals. Good luck and stay connected. See you next time.